Welcome to the QuarkXpress 2015 webinar series. My name is Matthias Günther. I'm going to lead you today through part 3 of our webinar series, where we talk about inline tables and productivity tips. As always, I'm going to show you everything in QuarkXpress 2015, the newest version, available as a perpetual license, no subscription. But of course, a lot of these tips also apply to previous versions of QuarkXpress. Some housekeeping, as always, as we're going to submit this video, this webinar through YouTube. Please leave comments in the comment field, share your thought below this video. And today we will answer questions almost immediately. We're going to mirror this all day. And when you ask some questions afterwards, after this day, the initial day, then we typically answer new questions within one business day. If you have longer questions or look for more answers, you could visit us at our forums or join our new Facebook group, QuarkXpress. So let's start. What we're going to show you today is really two topics. So the table of content is a bit shorter than normal. So first we're going to show you some inline tables, and then we're going to jump to the productivity tips and tricks. So if you want to skip ahead and you're interested in inline tables, then just skip ahead to the time indicated here. So let's start with inline tables. Before I show you inline tables, QuarkXpress already had tables for a while. Inline tables is a new table model, an additional table model. So I'm going to talk about design tables and inline tables. What's the advantage of inline tables? Well, the content of inline tables cannot be edited. It is always external. That means you need to define your content in Excel. That means that inline tables are also very fast because QuarkXpress can format them based on rules. And these rules that you define to define the formatting, you do, of course, with style sheets, things you know in QuarkXpress, and these style sheets will be applied in rules in so-called table styles. I'm going to show you that in a second. And the nice thing about these tables is they're really made for a lot of data, so for long tables. So to span pages, you can just link the table, if it's too long for one page, to another text box, and it will automatically flow into the new text box. And if you just want the table to create automatic pages by itself, so as long as it needs new pages, then just create an automatic text box. Well, let's just jump into it. So here in QuarkXpress, I want to create a brochure that lists the 100 highest mountains in the world. So my page is pretty empty, as you can see. And what I want to do is I want to add one of these new inline tables. For that, I'm going to use the same tool that I had in previous versions of QuarkXpress, the table tool. And I'm going to draw my table here. And now I need to link to external data. Inline tables can only be created from external data sources. Say OK. And I'm going to browse for an Excel file. And it's important that you use the XLSX format, so the newer format that Excel has now for some years. I'm going to say OK. And to create an inline table, you need to check this checkbox down here, inline table, because this is how you create the new format for tables. I'm going to have one header row, and I don't want to include geometry and formats, otherwise I would get the styling that somebody applied in Excel into Express. I don't want that. I just want the plain vanilla data from Excel, and the styling I'll do with QuarkXpress style sheets and all the methods that I know. I'm not going to apply a table style here. I don't have one because I'm going to create one and show you how to do that. So I'll say OK, and you can see that this table was quite quickly imported, but it has an overflow symbol here because I'm just seeing the 17 highest mountains, and I have 100 in my data source. And also it doesn't look very pretty, does it? So what I want to do is I want to style that, and I also want to flow that across different pages. For that, let's first add a new page here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new text box. Just creating a new text box here. Span it over the whole page. And now I'm going to use my page linking tool, and I'm going to link this table that has the overflow to my new text box, and you can see that immediately it flows onto the next page. Well, probably I should have done an auto text box on my master page, then everything would have been flowing automatically in creating new pages, but I wanted to show you how that also works manually. So now I could create more of the pages here, but that's not really what I want to show you. The first thing I want to point out here is that my header row that I specified has already been replicated. So I can see on my second page rank and mountain and how high the mountain is. Everything has been automatically set up here, so that's great. But I don't like the formatting. It looks very crude, so of course I want to style it a bit differently. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call up the new table style palette. So this table style palette here, I can now create a new table style or edit an existing one. So my new table style, I'm just going to call that mountains, so I know what I'm doing here. And in here I can see all of the styling that this table style allows me to do. So my frame for the whole table that I have here, the text box width that I'm going to use, and also down here some styling. But I need to apply the styling to a certain attribute of my table. So let's create one first. I'm going to hit this plus, and by default it goes to all. Even here right now, I don't want that. I want to specify that I'm going to format the header row, the first one, and which column in the header row. Well, I want to, let's scroll up, want to format all of them. And for background color, it's just, there's an orange in here. That's what I like. So I'm going to use this web save orange. Of course, I can always change that later if I don't like that. And how do I want my text style to appear? Well, I already have a style sheet created, which is called headline. So I'm going to use that. And I'm going to say, okay. And what you can see is that nothing has happened because I need to apply that style, of course. So I'm going to mark my table, and I'm going to use mountain as I apply the mountain table style to my table. And you can already see that some formatting has changed now. So what I can see is I have my header row formatted here, but what I don't like is that the header now is not continued anymore, so let's change that again so that I have my header also up here on my second page. And now I have the formatting that I want. Maybe I also want to have different grids in here. So you can see that currently they're all set to 0 points. So if I want to have different ones here, so let's say I want the left and the right one, I'll just set them to 1 point, and now you can see that I have separated lines in here. Okay, so that's good. So how do I format different cells? I probably want to have alternating lines here and an alternating color. So let's go back into my table style. I'm going to edit that further, and I'm going to add a new element here. So my element here that also defaults to header row, the last choice I've done, I want to change. I want to change, let's say, all even rows to something. So all even rows I want to format in the same orange, but I don't want 100%. I want something maybe like 30%. All right, let's put in 30%. I'll say okay, and now you can see that my table is alternating colors. Well, that looks much better, but I don't like my style sheet. So I'm going to go back into my rule. I'm going to change the style sheet to my body that I have defined. So, okay. And now everything is much smaller, and I like that much better. But now, of course, every odd row here has a different formatting. So we need to change that again. So I need to go back to my table style, and I'm going to add a new style. It's typically added at the top here. I'm going to change this to all odd rows, right? And white is fine. I can just use white here. But same style sheet. I want body here so that the text that appears here much larger now is the same size like in my even rows. So I'm going to say OK. And now I have formatted my table. You can see we're up to 56 now because everything is smaller. Maybe my header looks a bit too large, but I think you're getting the picture what I've done here. And also I still have too much text for my rows here, so I need to maybe adjust that, make it a bit smaller, stuff like that. The interesting thing though is if you look at my header here, what I don't like is, well, first thing, my header headline, what I have here, edit headline, my style sheet isn't centered, so I'm going to choose the center here. Everything now jumps into the center. It's a bit too big, I feel, so let's go back to headline again, edit headline, and I'm going to edit the character style. Let's choose 10. Okay, okay, so much smaller. This looks much better already. What I still don't like though is that in height here I have an M3 and I want to remove that. So I want to change the content. Well, of course I can't do that because that is something I need to do in Excel. So what I do here is first I'm going to rename my column here to mountain name, and then also I want to remove that 3 in brackets so that it looks nicer. And of course I could do more now, but for now let's just save this, and I'm going to go back to Quark Express. I'm going to go to Utilities, Usage, and when I go to the Tables tab, you can see that my table has been modified. So I'm going to update that. Please watch here what's happening with mountain and height, M, so meters. Say OK, update, and you can see that now my content has changed. So content changes are always done in Excel. Well, what I also don't like is that since sometimes I have different content here that is too long and my spacing doesn't look right. So what I first want to do is I want to adjust my body. So I don't want a leading of 14. I'm just going to go for auto leading. You can see I fit more of the table in here. And my table style, I also want to have some cell padding, right? So I want to have a bit more space. So for all odd and all even rows. So odd rows, I want maybe 3 at the top and 3 at the bottom, and also for all even ones 3 and 3. I'm going to say OK, and now I have more spacing and my table starts to look nice. So of course, we could go more into the new inline tables, but I think for now I'm going to leave it like this. So let's come to our second part, which is really productivity tips and tricks. So first thing I notice here is that the document window is underneath my palettes, which of course I don't want to see anymore. So what I typically do under OS X is I'm going to click on my green button here. Well, and what happens now, I'm going into full screen mode, which is a very nice and handy mode, but I don't want that here right now. So let's click again. Let's go back. So how do I make my document fit the available space of these docked palettes? The trick is under Yosemite, you need to hold the Option, the Alt key, and click on the green button. And now you can see that my document window has been adjusted. Okay, so maybe I don't like the measurements here. They're in millimeters right now. So if I click on the box, you can see down here is millimeters. Maybe I want picas or something else. How do I quickly change measurements. I can go into preferences and then maybe go into measurements and change them here. But it's much quicker if I don't do that. If I want to change both, so horizontal and vertical measurements, I just go to the little origin point here and I go to measure, and then I can change that maybe to picas. And you can now see that the measurement has changed in both directions, right? So pica and pica for X and for Y. Or if I want to see inches, same thing. I just go to inches here and everything changes. So that's much quicker to do this. So let's have a look at the tools here that I have. Well, we heard some requests of customers saying, well, I like these little flyout things. On the other hand, I have enough space on my monitor, so I want these tools to be on the top level of this menu bar, of this toolbar. So how do I change this? Well, let's for example get out all of my boxes here. To do that is I hold the control key, I click, I choose the element that I want to see, I release my mouse and I click again. And now you can see it jumps into the main bar. And if I repeat that for all of my boxes that I have here, you can see my toolbar is getting longer, especially when I now move down to my Bezier elements, right? You hold the control key, you select, and you click again. And then all of these things are moving out into the toolbar. So it's getting longer and longer. So that's one way of adjusting it. But what if I don't want to have a docked toolbar and I want to move this more into this corner? But I can't, right? Because right now there is no shortcut key to not dock it. Whenever you come into this area, it will dock. So you can just leave it here, which looks kind of weird. I don't want to have that. So I really want to have the toolbar at the left edge of my screen. How do I do that? Really easy. It's kind of a workaround before we have that functionality. So you first dock your toolbar at the top here, and now you just drag it out and you drag it into the top left corner, and then you just release it. And now you can see that the toolbar is at the left edge of my screen, but it's not docked because the document can actually be underneath this. Personally, I prefer to have as much space though as possible for my document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my toolbar and I'm going to dock that into my palette group. So you can see now that I have all of my tools in here available. And when I maximize my document window, you can see I have much more space. I can still select all of the tools that I have here. And also they scroll nicely up and down, so they don't take a lot of space that I could maybe use for my document. So let's start working with the document. One thing I see is down here, I have a text overflow. Well, how do you handle these things? You know, you either going to make your box larger. Well, it's not really handy, right? Because then maybe afterwards I don't remember how large my box was. Well, another way of looking at the overflow would be to just create a temporary text box here, link this, and then have a look at the text here. Again, nothing I really like, because it could be that there's another text chain, or this box flows into another text box, and then again, I'm not going to reconstruct that maybe correctly. Well, actually, it's really easy to do that, to see what the text overflow looks like. You just hit Command 8. And then Command 8 is going to give you this text editor. And in this text editor, you're going to see your story editor. You're going to see how much text is over. It shows you here in red. And you can also read the text. That's really handy, right? So I just delete some text, always the easiest to edit this. And I'm going to adjust my text so that it fits. And if you look at the same time into my document window, do that again. Let's add some text. You can see that I'm actually seeing what I'm editing in the story editor. You can see that also in my document and see exactly how it looks like, and also can see what text is not fitting it. I think this is really handy. So Command 8 to show or to hide the story editor. And of course, it's also available via menu here. So let's start working with boxes. Maybe I want this image here and I need this somewhere else. So I need to duplicate this. Well, what I used to do a lot of times too is I just hit Command D. This kind of jumps a bit and offsets, and then I hold my Option key, my Command key, if I'm in content mode, or in this case, because I have my item tool selected, I'll just move this around. But sometimes I just select by accident the wrong image, especially when they're very close to each other. So it's not so handy to do that. So let's just undo this. Isn't there an easier way to duplicate an item? And yes, there is, right? So all I need to do is I just move my item, and at any point before releasing the mouse, I just hold my Option key, my Alt key, and you can see now that I get this little plus at my cursor, and I can also see the outline of the box. And if I release my mouse now, before I release the Option key, I've actually duplicated my element. And I think this is really handy to do this. So let's work with this image a bit, right? So let's zoom in, and I'm going to select my content tool, and I'll make this a bit larger. I modify this. I have my proportions locked. I want to put this here. And now maybe I want to make my box a bit larger too. And this is a problem, right? Because there is this little handle underneath, and I can't hit the box handle. So I need to switch back to my content tool, my item tool, and then size this, and then back to my content tool and size it. This is not really handy. Well, there's a really easy workaround, or really easy way of doing that. You just hold the Command key, and then temporarily the image is being hidden, and then you can actually grab this handle, just release the Command key now, and now I can maybe adjust this a bit, and as soon as I release it, now you can see I have resized the box and not the image, right? And I can maybe angle this a bit the way I want to have this. So also very handy little trick to do. Well, and when I want to switch between the content tool and the object tool all the time, of course, I can do that temporarily with the Command key, but maybe now I want to switch back to the item tool, but I don't want to go there with my mouse. So how do I switch between the two tools? Easy. I just hit Shift F8, and you can see when I do that, that my tool actually changes. Well, how do I know it's Shift F8? Well, that's defined in the preferences. You go to Preferences in QuarkXPress, Key Shortcuts, and let's search for this, toggle. No, it's not toggle. It's switch between item and content tool, and there's a default shortcut key of F8. And the same thing is if I want to cycle between the tools. So you can see I have shortcut keys defined, Option F8 and Option Command F8, to actually move through the tools. And if you don't like them, you can actually change them there too. Okay, now I've scaled my image to 40%, and this image is actually scaled to 133. Did you ever wonder how you can set all images back to 100, regardless of where you've set them? Well, it's not a straightforward way of doing that, but there's a nice trick to actually achieve that. For that, I go to my Windows, and I'm going to go to Item Styles, and I'm just going to create myself an item style that does that. So I'll just call that 100%. I'm going to go to Box. I'm not going to change the box, not going to change the frame. The picture I'm going to change, and I'm just going to set this to 100 and 100, and the rest is going to not be changed. I'll say OK, and there I have my style, and then I can just click on this. See, it went to 100%. Maybe not the stuff I wanted, well, but I wanted to reset it, and this, which is at 133, I just set to 100. You can also see this is now reset. Well, I still need to manually click this, of course. So how do I do that if I want to have this all images automatically set to 100%? For that, I can now use item find change, and I can say, well, I want to find all picture boxes and then change them to picture having scale 100%. So that's also a way of automating that. I like the item style better because I can assign that a shortcut key. But this way, let's just say find next and then change and find, change and find, change and find. You can see all of the images are also now being scaled to 100%. So there's two ways of doing that, and it really depends on what you prefer here. So let's further work with our image here. I'm going to zoom in again, and here's my image. I'm in content mode, and I want to give this a frame. So Command B, remember, no shortcut keys have changed. So instead of a modal dialog, you're now jumping to the palette, and maybe I'm going to give this a 3-point frame, right? So just Command B3 return. And maybe I don't like this to be black. Maybe I want this to be orange. Okay, so I like this now, and I want to copy this box with image. Well, I'm in image mode, in content mode with my tool. How do I actually copy the box or cut the box so it becomes more obvious what I'm doing here? Well, of course, I can hit my Shift F8 shortcut key to toggle between the two modes, but it's much easier if I now do Command Option X. Then I'm not cutting the image, I'm actually cutting the box. So have a look how the difference is. So if I do a normal Command X, because I'm in content mode, I'm cutting the image, not the box. Undo that. If I want to cut the box and I'm in content mode, it's a very quick, really handy shortcut key to go Command Option X and cut the whole thing. So this is one of my favorite shortcut keys to actually work with images and not to have to move or to change between tools all the time. Let's work more with boxes. One of the feedback we hear a lot is that you can't apply anymore with working with the measurement palette. So let's apply a different frame. So I'm going to go Command B, and maybe I just want to see 6. I'm not hitting return because then of course I'm committing my changes. I'm going to hit Option Return. 6, that's not thick enough. 10, 12, let's go 20. Maybe that's nice. Now that's a bit too thick. I'll go back to 15. So you can see that by hitting Option Return, I'm just applying a change to see how it looks like. And only when I hit return then it is really committed. So a nice way of doing that. And one more thing with images. So if I want to stretch this image to this box, let's try that. So it's Command Shift F. Then you can see it doesn't seem to work. The reason for that is that my picture box actually has locked proportions. So if I unlock that, you can see I can actually distort this image. Well, what if I don't want to do that and I want to have Command Option F, which kind of keeps the proportion but leaves some space here at the boxes. And now I want to adjust so that the box fills the image. Now the easiest is that I just go to my contextual menu and say Fit Box to Picture. And then the box is resized so that it's exactly the size of the image. And that would be nice if I had a shortcut key for that. And of course you can assign one using the preferences here. So go to Preferences, Shortcut Keys, and fit box to picture and just assign it. Well, it's now half an hour, and let's start wrapping up, but I have a few more tricks I want to show you that have to do with text. One that I really like in the new version of QuarkXPress 2015 is actually to apply formatting. So I don't have a style sheet assigned. Of course, I could create a style sheet and then apply that to the formatting over here, which is in a different text box. Well, but I'm just in trying mode. I want to see what design looks best. So what I want to do is I want to apply formatting without creating a style sheet. For that, I can use the new apply formatting feature in QuarkXPress 2015. So I just select some of the sample formatting I have here. I go down here to the measurement palette to Format Painter. I select that, and let's just go to this text box, one click to activate, and then I paint it here. Well, obviously it's too large, so I need to increase my box. But yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Next thing, well, let's go back. What about if I copy the formatting here to the other box? If I had done that with style sheets again, well, I would have to again delete style sheets, apply style sheets. In this case, selected this, and now I just paint it here. And yeah, also looks nice. Maybe I'll adjust this. And you can see that my Format Painter is actually still active until I switch tools or until I hit the Escape key. So that's the Format Painter in QuarkXPress 2015. Okay, so let's jump to a different document. What I'm going to do here is, let's first have a look at some words that are being hyphenated. And I see Denver here, and I see QuarkXPress being hyphenated. Well, I don't like them to be hyphenated. So what I could do is I could go to SNBs and say, well, don't hyphenate capitalized words. Or I could actually go to hyphenation exceptions and specify that I don't want to hyphenate them. But I'd like a style sheet that doesn't hyphenate, and I think that would be really cool. Unfortunately, I would have to create for QuarkXPress a style sheet, a character-based style sheet that I call do not hyphenate, but I can't apply SNBs because SNBs are paragraph settings. So what can I do to not hyphenate? One easy trick is to actually set the language to none. Then the hyphenation method doesn't know how to hyphenate the word, and it shouldn't hyphenate anymore. So if I say okay, you can actually see this doesn't hyphenate anymore. And Denver, I also apply the do not hyphenate style sheet, and then again, it doesn't hyphenate. So much better than maybe putting a do not hyphenate command in front of it. And I could search and replace for QuarkXPress. So by doing find, I can say QuarkXPress, find it, and I want to change it to the style sheet do not hyphenate, and then I find next, and I can actually apply it to all of them if I say change all. And now QuarkXPress will never hyphenate again, which is a really handy trick to do. Okay, so that's good. The only thing I don't like about this text box yet is that I have some headers in here. You can see here's a header, and I want the header to be at the top of this column. These text boxes are linked text boxes. Well, how do I do that? Well, one way, of course, is by going here and hitting enter, and then removing that return here. But then I have to manually wrap everything. I want to automatically wrap everything. And the easiest thing is I just create a new style sheet that I call next column. And of course, it also works for next page. And in formats, I just put an enormous space before, like 100 inches. If I say OK, you can see that it automatically wraps to the next column here because it wants to keep that 100 inches before, which it can't do unless it's at the beginning. And if I want to apply this now to the next header and the next header, all I need to do again is do a search, and I say find text, and I don't replace it by any other text. I'm just going to apply my new style sheet here, the next column, find next, it's down here. Let's move this so you can see what's happening. And I say change all, and you can see that header now is always at the top of the column. Okay, so that wraps up our productivity tips and tricks for today. If you want to see some more tips and tricks, then please go to our forums. I actually took some of the tips and tricks out of the forums. And if you have a tip or a trick yourself, then feel free to share it. We welcome that. Or go to the new Facebook group, which is a closed group and you need to apply to gain access. But I think it's a very helpful group because it gives you a lot of tips and tricks from Quark Express fans and also from the Quark Express team. Thank you for spending the time with us. And again, if you have comments or questions about today's session, please leave them in the comments field and we'll answer them as quickly as possible. Thank you.